Am I the asshole for refusing to let my husband drive my son to school with his stepsiblings anymore? Context. My ex-husband and I have custody of our 11-year-old son. He's diabetic, and since his diagnosis is relatively new, we're still working on managing things for him so he could continue to live a normal life just like other kids. His stepdad is responsible for dropping him off, picking him up from school since his stepsiblings attend the same school. The issue began when my son started asking me or his bio dad to take him to school instead of his stepdad. He said that the reason for that is because his stepsiblings open his lunchbox and take all the additional snacks that he needs in case he had a hypoglycemic episode. That's what we call low blood sugar. His stepsiblings would take his lunchbox from him and take the snacks and only leave him his sandwich and water. His stepdad thinks there's nothing wrong with sharing, although I explained to him about a millionth times how important his snacks are. He promised that he won't let his kids touch my son's lunchbox from now on, and I believed him. Days ago, my son came home and told me his stepsiblings took his snacks from his lunchbox again. I was enraged. I asked if his stepdad saw them. He said yes, and he scolded him when he refused to let them have the snacks. I lost it. I blew up at my husband and told him that my son won't be riding in his car again with his stepsiblings after what they'd done and after he allowed it. I told him that my son's father will be driving him to and from school from now on. He lashed at me, saying that I was driving a wedge between the kids and teaching my son to grow up being selfish and self-centered and anti-social. And also making my son distant from him and getting him to favor his bio dad. I refused to discuss it now. He's acting all hurt and disrespected, saying it was not worth ruining the kids' relationship over some snacks. Edited. His argument is that I don't get his kids the same amount of snacks I get for my son. They go through their snacks in no time. In my defense, I said that the snacks are part of my son's diabetes management routine and he, unlike his stepsiblings, needs them anytime. And so I don't feel like I'm obligated, or that I should buy his stepsiblings the same amount of snacks, seeing that they can do without them for a while. Am I making sense here? Edited 2. My stepchildren's ages are 13 and 10. Unless your husband has some kind of rare cognitive impairment that means he doesn't understand the meaning of medical condition, he's the one who's the asshole here, not you. As a longtime Reddit fan, my first instinct is, of course, to suggest dumping him, but I'm trying to curb that instinct. Closing parenthesis. Not the asshole. And maybe it's time to have a conversation with your husband about possibly modifying the custody arrangements for your son, because he is neglecting the boy's very real medical needs in a way that can have very dire health consequences. Also, taking all of something is not sharing. You are the asshole for exposing your son to your husband who has no regard for him or his medical condition. Do the right thing and get a divorce and your son away from this toxicity. Am I the asshole for making my husband fly with our son instead of sending him alone? My husband took our 5-year-old son on a ski trip with his friends. A few days before they were supposed to come home, he called to tell me he had to go to Singapore for a meeting and that he was going to fly our son to me alone. I was in Paris and they were in Aspen, so it isn't exactly a short trip, so I told him no, as it was too long for him to be without one of us. He tried to convince me to agree, as he would make sure he was on the plane and the crew would look after him during the flight, and then I would be there when he landed, but I told him I didn't like the idea at all and he needed to fly with him or take him to Singapore with him. After a long heated discussion, he agreed to accompany him to Paris, even though it would mean he was cutting it close to the time he had his meeting. I didn't realize how upset he was by this until he landed and he made a snide comment about how ridiculous all of this was and how our son would have been perfectly fine coming on his own. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. I was on a flight from Paris to Canada a few years ago and my seatmate was an unaccompanied 6-year-old girl. She was lovely and better behaved than some adults, but I still ended up being thrust into the parenting role for her because there was a lot that she needed help with. 5 is way too young to be flying alone. I can't imagine how she would have managed had I not been willing to help her out with stuff. The crew would look after him during the flight. No. The flight crew are not babysitters, they will not be looking after him during the flight. He'd basically be in the care of total unwilling strangers who had the misfortune of sitting next to him. Not the asshole, your husband planned his trips badly. Am I the asshole for yelling at my wife after she woke me up to help with the kids? Please read the text first. My wife, Sonia, is a psalm of our 2 children, 7M and 5F. I really try to help with the kids when I get home, I know being Sam is pretty tiring even though she has part-time off from school, but help with homework, make food and taking care of kids can be exhausting. When I get home, I make dinner, wash the dishes and stay with our children for a while so she can have her moment too. These weeks have been pretty exhausting. It is a very important month professionally. In November will be the delivery of a 6-month project that my team and I are idealizing. Last week was the final touches and review of the entire project, so I went to work at 8 a.m., got home at 5 p.m., took care of my kids until 9 p.m. and was actually working until 3/4 a.m. To maybe get 4/3 of an hour of sleep. I have trouble sleeping. So if I slept 12 hours in 5 days it was a lot. I was exhausted. I wasn't even driving because I didn't trust my senses to drive. I couldn't vent to Sonia, because she was stressed too. Our children had the flu. I was dragged to the hospital by my co-workers after nearly passing out for only walking. The doctor demanded that I take a week's medical leave because I was already on the verge of a burnout. When I got home, I spoke to my wife and she seemed to be understanding. I asked her to give me a day off from everything, as I would try to get as much sleep as possible that night to come back better. She said fine. I offered to also give her a day off because I know she was tired too. I went to sleep at 9 p.m. and woke up to Sonia nudging me to take the kids to school. I walk with them. I talked about what we talked about yesterday and she said, yeah, but that's your part of the morning and I have other morning plans, yoga class, gym and house cleaning. I asked her 3x more to do this for me, as I was still exhausted, 6:30 a.m. But she just said, you're still a father, tired or not, it could be tired or not. But I ended up losing my mind and screaming. I just need a few hours of sleep. Please respect what I asked of you yesterday and let me sleep, man. She was in shock and said okay then. She took the kids and I slept until 4 p.m. There were several messages from her saying that I shouldn't have yelled at her for asking me to take responsibility as a parent and that it was toxic behavior of mine. Well, we haven't talked much more than necessary for 2 days. Am I the asshole? Yes, I could take them, but as I said in the text, I have a lot of trouble sleeping. After getting up and taking them, it would take a good few hours to get back to sleep, even exhausted. I answered in the comments and I'll put it as extra. 1. Our children stay from 7:15 a.m. until 1 p.m. at school. My wife picks them up from school and stays with them until 5 p.m. when I get home. 2. The things she does, gym and yoga, take up 2 hours a day. When she gets home, she cleans the house, sweeps, waters the plants, washes clothes, makes lunch, absolutely everything in the house. I don't think the division of tasks is so unfair because I'm not 100% the one who takes care of the kids at night. While I make dinner and wash the dishes, she stays with them and we also have family moments. My kids are in the Spirit Seeing Phase series and movie 1,000 times. I don't think it's that unfair, because it's chaotic sometimes. And I know that being responsible for our kids all day is exhausting, so I offered the same to her later. I couldn't put all this in the post due to limit words. Given the context, not the asshole. A doctor literally ordered you to rest. Your wife agreed to help you. If roles were reversed and you took time off work to step in for your wife, you would be the asshole for waking her up. She didn't respect your valid medical need to rest. Your doctor ordered a week of medical leave to rest. If this isn't a recurring thing outside of this isolated incident, not the asshole. Edit need change to leave, test to rest. Not the asshole. She couldn't change up her routine a bit after you got out of the hospital for exhaustion? To let you sleep? You're not the toxic one here. Not the asshole. Regardless of everything else, she agreed to your request of a day off from everything in order to catch up on your rest, by order of your doctor. She then tried to renege on that deal. Her fault, not yours. Am I the asshole for ordering takeout after my husband tricked me to cook for his kids? Am I the asshole? Hello. So to give some context, I F35 have been married to my husband, M37 for 6 months. He has 2 children from 2 different, uninvolved mothers and they live with us full-time. The kids are 7Y0 and 10Y0. I work long hours and it's a demanding job time-wise. My husband thinks that just because I WFH that I can pause whenever, but it's untrue. He'd ask me to do things for the kids or him during work hours, but I told him I'm working and unavailable during those hours, and that the kids are his responsibility till I'm done. Yesterday, he told me he wanted to go attend a friend's engagement dinner and asked if I could take time off work to make the kids dinner. I told him absolutely not, and insisted that he cook for them or order takeout. He said he had no time to cook, and takeout was off the table since he doesn't want them to eat fast food. He later said fine and that he was going to cook dinner then go to the party. 2 hours later, the kids came in and said they were hungry. I was puzzled. I asked if their dad cooked them dinner and they said he didn't. Moreover, he told them to come ask me to cook for them at exactly 7 p.m. I was so pissed to find myself in this situation. I took few minutes off the meeting and ordered takeout from the nearby restaurant and fed the kids, then had them watch TV then go to sleep. He came home at 11 p.m. and went off on me after he discovered that I didn't cook like he was counting on me to do. Not only that, but he yelled about feeding the kids takeout. I argued back saying I had no choice after he basically tricked me into cooking for them knowing I was busy, so I ordered food and made sure the kids were fed while I focused on work. He ranted about how I care more about work than my stepchildren, God forbid, and called me selfish, then went upstairs and refused to talk to me. He's still sulking about it today and says I need to get my priorities in order, cause they're messed up. Info about that friend's engagement. My husband has this friend from college. They're close and he couldn't miss the event. Moreover, he said he was upset with me for missing the event and now refusing to cook a homemade healthy meal and ordering takeout knowing it's a no-go for him. Info. The reason I expected him to cook other than the fact that I was busy was that he usually cooks for them, so it's both of our responsibility. Info. Does he work? Yes, but barely. He works at a warehouse only twice a week. His friend's dad owns the warehouse and he has a lot of leverage. Info. More context on the mothers. One is an ex-wife, the other is an ex-girlfriend. Both left for financial reasons, he said, but I'm not fully convinced by that. Wait. He told you that you need to get your priorities in order when he left his children unfed to attend a party? Why did you marry this man? So much not the asshole. Not the asshole, but you have bigger issues in your marriage than takeout. You married someone who does not respect your work or your time, is willing to let his kids go hungry in order to force your hand, and is now using emotional blackmail to punish you. This is a fundamentally broken approach to relationships, and it's honestly not hard to see why he doesn't have relationships with either of his kids' mothers.